Virtual meetings, presentations, and corporate reviews might be here to stay. Are you ready to present yourself at your brightest and most positive online? In this live stream section, we are going to discover the first thing is the benefits of virtual programs, the difference between presentation structures in a virtual environment, audience engagement, and finally, tools and equipments to improve your presentations. This education session is conducted by EIY Public Speaking and Professional Development, and our guest speakers, Ms. Lisa Braithwaite. MA Lisa Braithwaite is an advocate and trainer in the non-profit sector, and her degrees in theater and education have influenced her upbeat and accessible approach to public speaking training. She is being hired by companies such as Microsoft, the National Oceanic, and Atmospheric Administration. She's been interviewed for her public speaking perspective and expertise journal, Los Angeles Times, Chicago Tribune, and Men's Health, and on numerous podcasts. Hello, Miss Lisa. Welcome to the show.
Hi there. Thank you for inviting me on.
Thank you, Miss. The first question I would like to ask you is, what are the pain points of our corporate professionals when moving from offline presentation to online presentation?
I would say that the biggest problems I see, first of all, are people feel uncomfortable because they can't read the audience. When they can't see them and hear them, they can't really figure out what their engagement and emotions are. So that's the first thing. And then because they can't see and hear the audience, they're afraid that they aren't engaging and they aren't keeping the audience's attention. And then the third thing I see a lot is a fear of the unknown technology, and that people don't know how or are afraid to learn how to use Zoom or Microsoft Teams or StreamYard, like what we're doing right now. And that keeps them from finding new ways to engage with their audiences.
I see. It seems that we are afraid of new things, right? Because we haven't experienced it yet.
Afraid of new things. Yep.
Yeah, I got your point. So, what is the solution for that, Miss Lisa?
I'm always inviting people to take risks, get out of their comfort zone. I was just talking today in another training about calculated risks and really look at what's the worst thing that could happen and what's the best thing that could happen. And by taking little baby steps and just learning little bits, you don't have to get really complicated with your technology, but take some baby steps and start practicing, even if it means you get on Zoom with some friends and you practice playing with the chat and all the different interaction tools on Zoom. Just keep it simple, but take a risk, get out of your comfort zone, try something new, and practice it in a safe space with people you trust and friends who aren't going to make you feel bad if you mess up.
I see. It means that get out of your comfort zone to explore new things in your life and practice it.
Yep.
Yeah, got you. What are the benefits of virtual training or virtual programs?
Well, I'll tell you, for me, I love working from home. And I don't know about you. How do you feel about working from home?
Oh, I like it so much. I enjoy.
I like it a lot. So not having to travel has been a real benefit for a lot of us. I know a lot of people like to travel, but maybe not so much business travel as we like traveling for fun. And so it frees up a lot of your time when you don't have to travel all over the country or all over the world to deliver your presentations. It frees up your time, and there's a lot less stress when you don't have to travel. Also, in my case, because I have clients and I speak to people all over the world, I can reach more people. When I don't have to travel, I can reach people just right here on a screen, like I'm talking to you and to your people today. And then also, I believe that presenting virtually can also help you build your in-person presentation skills. We talked about getting out of your comfort zone and taking some risks. It really causes you to stretch. I keep hitting my button. Causes you to stretch your abilities when you present virtually, and you can apply those new things that you learn to your in-person speaking.
Do you think online presentation and offline presentation is different, Miss?
I honestly, to me, they're not that different, but
Yeah.
I've always been the kind of speaker who incorporates a lot of engagement and a lot of interaction. So I have found ways to make my online presenting very similar to my in-person presenting. So I still do a lot of the same exercises and activities, but instead of having people stand up and move around and do different things, we do them this way, sitting at our desks. So there are differences. Do you want me to share what the differences are?
Sure. Yeah, would be great.
Yeah. So to me, again, it can be very similar. You can do very similar things. But obviously, one of the things I mentioned before was that in live training, you can really gauge your audience's energy levels and engagement by noticing their body language and their facial expressions and all those things we look for, right, in a live audience. And when you're presenting remotely, it's a lot harder to do, especially when people turn off their cameras, right? Sometimes people don't even turn on their cameras and you can't see anything. Another difference is, again, the exercises and activities that you can do in a live training. You can have people get up and move around and move into different groups, and it actually can help maintain the energy in the room. Whereas in a remote environment, we're all sitting, and that can be very draining. And then the other thing about virtual training that can be very draining is looking at a screen. And in my case, I'm looking at the camera, right? Because I want to make eye contact with my audience, but it's very draining to be looking at a screen and looking at all these faces and words on the screen and looking into the camera. It's draining in a different way than using a lot of physical energy. So those are the ways I would say that it's different.
Do you think online presentation will be a new trend for our world in working, in training, in workshop? Do
Say
you
that
think
again.
do you think online presentation will be a new trend for our working world?
Absolutely.
Mm,
In my experience, a lot of organizations that used to spend a lot of money flying speakers and flying trainers to their offices and putting them up in hotels and flying people in, I think that a lot of organizations are discovering that this kind of training, if it's done well, if it's done right, can save a lot of money and a lot of time. And so I do think this is the trend. I mean, I don't just think this is the trend. There are a lot of articles and there are a lot of things that you can read that talk about this trend. Now, granted, a lot of organizations will go back to doing at least some of their conferences and their events in person because people do want that. And eventually we all won't be so contagious and people hopefully will be vaccinated and we can do that safely. But I do think a lot of organizations are looking to save time and money by bringing in remote training. So I think it's definitely going to continue as a trend. And I hope it continues as a trend because I really enjoy it. And again, if you can find a trainer that does this well, then it's not a lesser version of training. It's just as good as in-person training. It's just different.
yeah, because people see the benefits of online training, right? And the
Right.
companies can save a lot of money,
Yep.
yeah, on the budget. Yeah. And to present offline or either online, we also need to structure our presentation to make sure that we can engage, we can make it clear to our listeners. Do you think that restructuring your presentation in virtual environment is different from offline environment?
Yes, there are some things that I do differently and that I teach people to do differently when you're structuring your online presentation. One of the things that we wouldn't have to do in an in-person presentation is making sure that people understand the technology. In the old days, we would call it housekeeping, and we would go into this room and we would say, okay, here's a little housekeeping. We're going to take a break at this time, and the bathrooms are down the hall. And we would do these things we called housekeeping. Now, what we do that's housekeeping in online presentations is we make sure that people know how to use the chat. For example, I always ask people in Zoom, I ask people, make sure you have the right name in the box, and make sure that if your name is Harold, but you really go by Hal, write Hal in the box. So I have people practice a couple of the online tools. I always have a slide in the beginning of my presentation that asks people to type something into the chat as they enter the room so that they can practice using the chat. So that's the first thing that I do, is I incorporate right up front at the beginning of my presentations some practice with the technology to make sure everybody's camera's on and their microphones are working and all of those things. Another thing is in online presentations, you're probably using more technology than in-person presentations. So in terms of structuring activities and exercises, you could just stand up. Like I have a whiteboard behind me. I could stand up and write on the board. But we also now have applications like Padlet or Mentimeter that a lot of people are using. And so you have to be prepared to get people involved from their computers, on their computers. So another difference in how you structure your presentation is building in the time for people to go out of the platform and into one of these other applications, or to do something like a poll on their phone or something like that. And then another thing that I feel that's really important in online presenting is just more interaction and more engagement, even than I recommend in an in-person presentation. Because in an online presentation, it's really easy for people to just turn off their camera and go start doing dishes or go do something else, right? And then they can listen to you in the background, but they're not engaged, they're not interacting. So we have to structure our presentations with more interaction and more engagement closer together. I find myself constantly asking people, oh, have any of you experienced that? Type in the chat, and oh, type in the chat, raise your hand if you've done this. And I'm constantly incorporating interaction with online trainings. Whereas in a classroom, I'm not necessarily having people people don't have to answer me every 2 seconds, but you really do need to keep that interaction going online, or people will just tune out and turn off their camera and go fold laundry or do something else. Go do their email or their Facebook.
Yeah, I think because we have so many distractions when we do online.
Yes.
That's yeah.
So
That's
many more distractions. Now, I know that people, even in live presentations,
mm,
in a big audience, I've seen many people get on their phones and start doing things in an audience, an in-person
mm,
audience. But we definitely have so many more distractions when we're doing online training. And because so many of us are at home, we have kids and pets and chores and dinner to cook. And there's so many more things to take our attention away besides just our work and our social media. There are actually things all around. So we really have to, I want to say one thing about that though. People are always distracted. They have been distracted since the beginning of time. So even on remote training, even in-person training, you're never getting 100% of your audience's attention, right? We know that. We lose their attention, we call it back. We lose it, we call it back. It's the same in online presenting. So if you're not getting 100% of your audience's attention, it's normal, but you just have to keep drawing them back.
I see. Do you think keeping audience attention online is more difficult than offline?
I just think it's different.
Mm,
I personally don't find it hard to keep my audience's attention because, as I said, I'm always switching it up. I'm always doing new things. I'm telling stories. I'm asking people to raise their hand. I'm asking people to write in the chat. I use breakout rooms. I do a lot of interaction, both in person and online. But I do think for a lot of presenters, it is hard to keep your audience's attention online just because people don't know how.
yeah.
They don't know how to interact and engage their audiences. It's all new. And because you're not standing in a room with everybody's attention on you, now there's all these faces on the screen and all these other things people can be doing on their computer. It is harder to keep the audience's attention for people who don't know how to engage and interact with the audience.
I see. So that means that we need to figure out the way how we can engage audience attention online.
Yep.
Got you. And how, so go back. I think that this question also linked to the previous point that we just mentioned. How do we engage audiences virtually with all the distractions we face, apart from those tips that you just shared? Do you think that we have any other ways to keep our audience engagement?
Well, so I do believe in using the engagement tools. I actually have a class coming up just on how to use polling, chat, video, breakout rooms, and reactions to keep your audience engaged. Just the very simple 5 basic tools that Zoom gives you. I do have a class coming up on that because people just they now know how to use Zoom a little bit, but they're not using any of those things. But to add to that, we still need to be engaging through our body language. So as you can see, I use my hands a lot. I'm very, very handsy. But even more so than in front of the room, we have to remember to use vocal variety. We need to vary our pitch, our pace, our tone, our volume. We need to use our facial expressions and look into that camera and look at people. And use your hands, use your body, because again, it's what we're looking at is talking heads, right? We call it talking heads. And a person who just sits and you have to make eye contact with the camera. A person who sits and looks down here in the middle of the screen and doesn't vary their voice and doesn't use their body and keeps their head in one place and they're just reading off the screen, you're not going to engage the audience that way. It's going to put the audience to sleep. Oh, can I give one more tip about this?
Yeah, sure.
Here's a great tip. So I know for a lot of people, it's hard to look at the camera. People are still learning how to do that. And I've heard some people like to paste a little picture of a face next to the camera so that they feel like they're looking at somebody. But here's another tip I want to give your audience. If you have the ability to turn off the self view, for example, in Zoom. Now, I'm not familiar with other platforms. I don't know what it's like in Teams or some of the other platforms. But in Zoom, you can hover the cursor over the dots in your little picture on the screen, and you can click Hide Self View. When your own face is on the screen, it's very hard to look away. And I notice a lot of people kind of looking into the middle of the screen or looking down at the screen, and I think they're looking at their own face.
Yeah.
If you can take your face off the screen, now I don't mean turn off your camera, I just mean hide your self view. If you don't see your face on the screen, you're less likely to keep looking there. We can't help looking at our faces on camera. Like my
Yeah.
face is over here off to the side right now, and I see myself moving around. And
Yeah.
it's very tempting to look over and go, what am I doing? What am I doing? So that's another tip for kind of keeping your eye contact and your focus on the audience, is taking your own face off the screen.
Yeah. You have a tip that we better turn off our view, like our camera, or maybe we just hide our image when we present online. What is the reason for that, Miss? Why people tend to look at their images when they see themselves? Is it about self-evaluation?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's some psychology behind it. I
Yeah.
imagine there is some legitimate psychology behind why we're obsessed with looking at our own faces. I do think part of it is, how's my hair? How do I look? Is my lighting okay? I know that tend to be, when I'm presenting, I tend to be worried that even though I made sure my face is in the frame and everything looks okay, I keep looking because I keep thinking it's going to change. I don't know why. So I think we are checking in to make sure that we look okay and that we're doing everything right. But I think there's probably some psychology about why we're drawn to looking at our own faces, but I don't know exactly what it is. So thank you for asking me that question, because I think I need to research it. I think I
Yeah.
need to find out why we're obsessed with looking at our own faces on screen.
Recently, I just studied a course on LinkedIn, and they said that the reason why people tend to look at our images when we present online, because we tend to have our own self-evaluation. We tend to evaluate how do we look, just like you said.
Yep.
Yeah. So we.
It makes a lot of sense.
Mm,
And the other thing is when we do it all the time, right? When you walk past a store window, you
yeah.
look in the mirror, in the window, right? You look at your reflection. How do I look? How do I look? When you walk past a mirror, you always look in the mirror. How do I look? How do I look? And so I do think we are constantly evaluating ourselves. We do it all the time.
Mm,
And yeah, just having that image of yourself on the screen is just another distraction.
yeah. Right. For yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that we come to the final questions. And everyone, in case that you have any questions for our speaker, Miss Lisa, please make sure that you can comment on our chat box so that I can help to send the questions to her. So the final question from EIY is, what tools and equipments will improve your presentations?
And I want to keep this one really simple. A
Mm,
lot of people I've noticed with the professional speakers that I am connected with, they've gone nuts during the pandemic, and they've gotten all these screens and all these fancy microphones and cameras and switchers and just incredible amounts, thousands and thousands of dollars of technology.
wow.
And I think if you're a very high paid professional speaker and you're used to standing up and doing keynotes and everything, there's nothing wrong with setting up a studio for yourself. But most people that I work with are business people. And I think you're people as well, right? They're mostly business people.
Yeah.
And they want to use speaking to build their business and grow in their business. And so I want to tell people, keep it simple. It's important to have a good microphone that plugs in. So wireless, the things that you see people wearing in their ears, wireless microphones are just a little risky, because if your Wi-Fi goes out, if you lose your Wi-Fi, you lose everything. When I present, this, for example, I plug in my. Oh, see, I am. It's not plugged in properly right now, but I plug myself in to my Ethernet cable, so you don't lose Wi-Fi. So make sure that you have a good microphone that plugs into your laptop and that's hardwired. And make sure that you have some lighting. And again, it doesn't have to be fancy or expensive lighting. What happens a lot of time is people rely on natural light. So I have a window right next to me over here to
Mm.
this side.
Yeah.
Problem is, it's nighttime for me right now.
Mm.
So it's dark outside.
Yeah.
So if I were relying on natural light, you may be
Yeah.
giving presentations at night or early in the morning. You don't know.
Mm.
But the other thing is, even during the day, if you have clouds kind of rolling in, your natural light can go light, dark, right? If you have a rainy day or something. So you should always have
Mm.
other external lighting and don't rely on natural light and
Mm.
windows for your lighting. But you can get very inexpensive lighting on Amazon, or you have Amazon, right? On.
Yeah, we do have, but the point is Amazon doesn't ship to Vietnam yet. So
Okay, so but you have something else. You
we
probably
have
have
our
something
combination.
else that people can use in Vietnam.
Yeah.
So microphone, lighting. Another thing to know that Zoom has settings that you can actually use to automatically adjust your camera. So if you do have low lighting, you can go into Zoom and have Zoom automatically adjust the lighting in your camera.
Mm.
And I have one more tip that I want to share with people. I know a lot of people have really gotten excited about green screens over the
Mm.
past year and a half. And everybody wants to have a green screen and they want to do virtual backgrounds and have Star Trek and all these things behind it, or Star Wars or whatever.
Mm.
Um, to have a green screen work well for you, it needs to be a couple feet behind you, and it also needs to have its own lighting. So there's
Mm.
enough contrast between your head and the green screen. So if you're not able to do that, if you don't have room for a green screen, and maybe your backdrop isn't very good, maybe you're doing presentations in the kitchen. You know, a lot of people are doing presentations in their bedroom right now.
Mm.
Zoom has a feature in the virtual backgrounds called blur, and you
Mm.
can just
Yeah.
blur. And I'm
Yeah.
talking about Zoom a lot because that's mostly what I use. I believe
Mm.
Microsoft Teams actually had blur before Zoom did. But then you can kind of blur out your background and nobody can see where you are. And then you don't have to worry about what's behind you being
Mm.
distracting. So those are really my main tips. Just keep it simple. You don't have to spend a lot of money and you don't need a lot of fancy technology in order to engage with and connect with your audiences.
Yeah, right. So utilize available sources that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just like me, actually, I don't spend much money on technology. I use my lamp at home in order to brighten
Yeah,
my face.
your lighting looks good. Your lighting
Yeah,
is really good.
yeah, right. Thank you. So make sure that you just utilize it and don't spend much more money on that. And
Right.
as long as you are beautiful and you are communicating your message well.
Exactly. That's the most important thing. And you
Yeah.
want your audience to see you. So you need to have your face lit up, right? So
Mm.
they can see you. And you want them to be able to hear you. So you want
Mm.
to have a reliable microphone that plugs in. But really it's your face and your voice and your message
Mm.
that is important, not all your fancy technology that you spent $10,000 on.
Yeah, totally agree. Unless that we are professional speaker.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Miss Lisa, so much. I believe that our audience really get benefits from your sharing because we understand how we can present online and how is it different from presenting offline. So I think that is very valuable for our listeners here. Hello everyone. Our next live stream session gonna be conducted tomorrow night at 6 p.m. September 12 with the topic Leadership Through Feedback, and it is spoken by Mr. Mark. So thank you so much everyone for joining us. Thank you so much, Miss Lisa.
Thank
I really
you.
appreciate that. Yeah. Bye bye.